I'll read from Whispers from Eternity, number 60. I will broadcast my voice with the chorus of thy songs. With the soft finger touches of my soul intuition, I tuned the radio of my inner perception. At first, I caught only the sounds of nearby experience. Then came a symphony of inner harmony, followed by sweet strains from my heart's orchestra of finer feelings. And then came the swelling chorus of my age-long cravings for thee. All these I caught on the radio of my soul as I kept tuning my perception, waiting to catch the whispers of thy voice, O guardian angel of all souls. With infinite patience, I went on tuning my radio. At last, when I was almost prepared to give up further trying, thy song burst upon my heart. Oh, let me broadcast through my every word now the chorus of thy songs. I thought that was an interesting reading because it talks about symphonies and orchestras and sounds. And I've played in quite a few orchestras and symphonies. It's a really good metaphor for the spiritual path. And it comes up a lot. In fact, I think Padma mentioned a little bit about it a couple weeks ago. Well, to get into an orchestra, you have to practice a lot. You can get into a youth orchestra for children with a couple years of practice, and for the really high-tier professional orchestras, you may practice your whole life and still not get in. But once you get into the orchestra, the first thing you do is tune. And the way that you tune is the concertmaster gets up, he's basically the leader of the orchestra, and he plays a note. And then everyone else plays the same note. And what's really interesting is when the orchestra is in tune, ideally it should sound like one note. This is hard to get an experience to get when you have a whole orchestra, but when there's one teacher and one student, the teacher plays the note, and the student who starts out of tune, you can hear two notes. But once he's in tune, and the student and the teacher are in tune, you will hear, ideally, one note. But once you are in tune, you don't just go home. That's when you actually start to play the music. And this is what makes it such a good metaphor, especially for today's topic of self-effort, because every musician in the orchestra has practiced really hard, and this is probably their life's work, and they're playing at maximum effort. But they're only playing the music that's given to them. And in fact, none of them are allowed to think about themselves. Okay? If you're playing in the music, if you're playing in the orchestra and your arm cramps, it's a little bit of a disaster because now you're thinking about your arm. And you're really only supposed to be thinking about the music. And in that way, you can create a flow of music, which you're being like a channel playing the music for everyone else to hear. Now, I want to tell you about a cartoon I saw. It was a band, and they're in a recording studio, and there's a banjo player who is not the most respected instrument in the orchestra. It's usually not in the orchestra. And he was tied up and on the ground and muffled, and his banjo was next to him, and then the producer says, "Too much banjo." Now, I want to go back to the reading from Rays of the One Light, in particular the Bible reference that Swami makes to the woman. Well, first, reaching out doesn't seem like, to touch someone, doesn't seem like it would take that much effort. But we have to realize that there was a crowd of people touching Jesus. He says, "Who touched you?" Jesus asked, "Who touched me?" And the disciples say, "Everyone's touching you." But none of those people received anything from Jesus from touching him, which is, if you think about it, it's a little bit of a disaster if you're so blessed to live at the same time as Jesus, and you even get to meet him and touch him, and you get nothing out of it. Right? He's just some guy. But for this woman, she must have had incarnations of effort and attunement. And Master says, by her faith-enhanced willpower, that's how she was able to draw the blessing from Master, or Jesus. And I'm really curious, what did she do after that? There's no mention of this woman that I'm aware of. What did she do after receiving this blessing? But I'm basically getting at what Master wrote in his Whispers from Eternity, is after becoming in tune and receiving the blessing, he wants to play this song for everyone. And I'm guessing that's what happened, but we don't really know. Anyways. It is a really rare gift to become conscious of these blessings. Because the fact of the matter is the whole world is being blessed continuously, nonstop. It's not even a pulsing thing like here's a blessing, here's another. It's actually just nonstop. That's what the teachings tell us. We live in a world of duality, and with that comes waves. So there's oscillations. But when we meditate, we're looking for yoga, which is union, stillness, or a singularity in scientific terms. It's one thing, and it's constant. It doesn't pulse. One of the lyrics to one of our songs or our prayers is often misunderstood. It's thy vast, unthrobbing heart. The heart of God doesn't pulse. It's just constant. Right. So let's take a look. Let's do a strange thing. Let's look at who we have on the altar. We have Jesus, and we have Babaji. Babaji is referred to as Mahavatar, great avatar. And then we have Lahiri, who is referred to as a yoga avatar of yoga, which is union. It could also be thought of as a technique. And then we have Swami Shri Yukteswar, second from the right, Gyan avatar of wisdom. And then we have our guru, Paramhansa Yogananda, on the far right. He's referred to by Rajarsi as a Prem avatar of love. Swami called him bliss avatar of joy. These are two pretty similar things, but for my purposes, I want to talk about Prem avatar of love. Because our teaching is that Babaji and Jesus sent him for our benefit. And as Master was coming to see us, he saw all of our faces of the American potential saints who needed to be awakened. There's no reason that our faces weren't included. We weren't alive when he came, but there's no reason to think that he didn't see all of us all at once. Okay, he said that in some of his talks, he recognized all the faces. He saw them already, and he saw more faces, even more than were in the rooms. That's a very interesting thought to me. It's the one that really keeps me going, that we're meant to have a personal and an impersonal, but also a personal relationship with our gurus. And they're all our gurus. Now, I mentioned that to be conscious of the blessings you're receiving is a rare gift. But Ananda is a really cool place because I think that a lot of people here are conscious of the blessings that they've received. And until you feel it, you can't really give it. Now, Master said that the only thing that can replace him is love. And he also said that God is love. He said, God is love. And when you feel that in your heart, when all the cells of your body vibrate to that vibration, you will know God is love. As the scriptures say, every particle of your being, every cell will vibrate to that high vibration of divine love when you merge in him. Having that, you can give something real to people. You can really serve God in all. So what I'm trying to get at is that we have to attune ourselves to that divine love. And if you knew that there was something out there, God or the masters, that loved you more than anything in the universe, then more than any human has loved another human, really, what would you do? You might talk to them, you might pray to them, and what would you pray for? You might pray for a healing. You might pray for some money. Some people pray to get into heaven. Swami said that his only prayer was for the love of God. And what does that mean? Master said that the proof of love of God is in recipiency and reciprocity. And this is the whole point that I want to make, is that if God loves you, our only duty then is to love him back. That's kind of the whole point. And Master said that God has everything, but he hasn't our love. If you think about that, that explains the whole thing. People are wondering, what is the purpose of life? Why did God make us? Why do we have to do all these things? It's because God has all these things already, but we have free will. And therefore, we can choose to love him, or we can choose not to love him. Okay, and loving God isn't that easy. Okay. But Swami said that when he dies, he expects that Master will ask him only one question. How much have you loved? I used to think that the spiritual path was so difficult, and I confirmed that now, but there's all these rules. In fact, there's no rules, but there are rules, right? Especially if you come from other more traditional religions where you have to love these people, but not these people. You have to eat this and not that. You have to meditate a certain number of hours a day, and then you have to serve a certain number of hours a week. And I really can't keep up with all of that, okay? But Master said, 1,000 rules you can make, and 1,000 rules people will break if they don't want to follow. But love God, and you have obeyed all rules. So love is difficult. Let me give you a funny quote here from Lady Gaga, one of our eminent pop stars. She said, "Loving you is cherry pie." Really an easy thing, right? It's a piece of cake to love someone. But actually, by the end of that video in which she does that, she's killed her lover. So maybe it's not as easy as she says, okay? And Saint said a little bit of the same thing. Saint Teresa of Avila, she went through a really tough time, almost died. And she said to God, when will you stop putting obstacles in my path? And the Lord answered her, "Don't worry, I treat all my friends this way." And she said, "That's why you have so few." So it's not that loving God is easy, but it's the only thing that we have to do and the only thing that we have to focus on. And that's not to mean that we don't have to do physical work. What's hard about this, really, it's easy to feel love in a sense. But it's really hard to translate that feeling into what we have to do on this planet. Okay, even couples who love each other very much, they get into fights. And it's not that they don't love each other when they're fighting, it's just that they have to figure things out, right? And that's what we have to do with each other, and we also have to figure that out with God. How can we love God? Because Master says that God will tempt us, and he will test us all the time. And we have all these obstacles, and we have all these temptations which can clutter our heart. And the heart's a really interesting thing, because if we got to use our muscles, if we could find God by using our muscles, it would actually be a much easier thing to do, right? If I want to push someone, I know how to do it. We all know how to do this, right? You just push. And if you want to push really hard, you push really hard. It's that simple. But if you want to love someone, or if you want to love God, unfortunately, you can't just turn that on in your heart, really. Most people don't have the ability to, okay, I choose to love you, and therefore I do, and I feel it all the time. And now you know, right? Because I just told you I love you. But how many people have said I love you, and the other person didn't feel anything? We don't have the ability to project our feelings like that. It's a really hard muscle to work with, isn't it? And that's why we have all these techniques, a lot of techniques, and we got lots of service that we can do. until we can do all these things while loving God at the same time. And while you're serving, sometimes we call different locations the karmic tumblers, because you're going to be a rock in there and other rocks are going to jostle you around. And you have to be able to love God even when a rock hits you. It's a little bit tricky sometimes. But I was saying that Ananda is a really cool place. Let's look at that one more time. Ananda is you could call it a church. Legally, we're a church. I actually argued with people about this recently. But it's not a typical church, okay? In the past, churches were places of respite, of rest. And if you were running from the law, if you were sick, if you were homeless, you could come to the church and people were going to take care of you. At Ananda, we take care of people, but we're also asking you to do something else. Everyone who's been here, it's all friends and family today, we all know that once you're at Ananda, you'd better pick something to do, or it will be picked for you. And in fact, the funny thing is, the more that you pick for yourself to do, the more it will be picked for you to do also. It's not a place where you land so much. It's a place that you take off from. I like to think of it as a base camp at a mountain. Everyone who comes to the base camp has already done a lot of work. They've made a huge journey. But and when you get to base camp, you rest, it's true. But nobody goes to base camp unless you are about to make the hardest journey, the final journey, the last piece, which is the hardest part. And there's some quote, I don't remember exactly how it goes, but those of us who choose to do Kriya Yoga, you've had to travel away across the whole world to get to San Francisco or something like this. And Kriya Yoga is what you have to do to get to, the mayor's house or something in San Francisco. So we've already arrived at the city, and now we just have to take the next little drive, the final part, to the top. So one thing about the spiritual path is we have lots of ways of envisioning it and lots of metaphors, but there's one that really stands out to me the most. And if you were here for the purification ceremony, we say this thing that is, I seek purification by the grace of God, and then the master says, open your heart to me, and I will enter and take charge of your life. Which is a really profound thing to say, and not an easy one to do, because again, the heart, not a muscle you just open like that, okay? But Master said that our hearts must be hermitages for God, which is such a beautiful image. In the Bible, Jesus hosts Lazarus in his heart, and his family sees him there and says, wow, okay? And then we are also supposed to host God in our own hearts. That's what a hermitage is. So I'll close now with one thing that Riemann shared with us from seclusion. I think he's coming back today, but this is actually from a different seclusion, 2024. It's about Padre Pio. Padre Pio, looking up at Jesus in a vision, said, "If you give your consent, I will be actor and spectator at the same time of all you shall do in me, as if done by me."